I was thinking about something. The way that I look is a big deal to people, right? It's like, it's like whether I'm people kind of try to play it all sorts of ways, like whether I'm ugly, whether I'm pretty, whether I'm like old, whether I look young for my age, like whatever, right? Whatever it is, the strikes their fancy kind of on any given day. And I feel like I have a lot of thoughts about sort of aging and that kind of thing. It's interesting to be the age that I am, because sometimes I look younger and sometimes I look older, and I'm definitely like starting to look like another person than I did look like even kind of 10 years ago, which was not really, I hadn't really paid that much attention to aging or read about it that much, or like what it does to what you look like or any of that stuff when I was younger. And I didn't know that there's stuff that you kind of can't even avoid, but it's kind of interesting when I realized a few years ago that looking older also has to do with you will actually eventually not even really look like the same person that you look like, that you have gotten to know yourself as in terms of an adult, right? You start out like, so the first big change is like from being like a little kid to being a teenager, and then even being a teenager you can kind of grow to like look a little bit different as an adult. I'm kind of one of those people who has always looked like myself. Like, people can see me like 10 years later of whatever it is, and they usually know that it's me, except for that weird time when I was taking psychiatric medication that made me so much larger that people who knew me before I gained all that weight didn't recognize me, and people who met me when I was 30 to 50 pounds heavier than I usually was didn't recognize me at first when they saw me after I had lost all the weight. And really, there was nothing I could do to lose weight except to stop taking that medication. Really, it really just changes your whole body. There's nothing you can do. You're like bloated. And it was like that for a few years, all the way through college. That was hard. But anyway, it's interesting because I wasn't really, like, when I was just getting to be like looking the way that I was supposed to look as adult, like when I was like, getting into my late teens, and sort of, didn't look like a kid anymore. It took me a while to get used to people's reactions to what I looked like. And it took me a long time to realize that people were not, like most people were not just kind of like seeing me for the person that I was. They were responding to what I looked like. And people do that anyway, no matter what you look like. People will sort of like decide what kind of person you are. They get a first impression of you, and they decide what kind of person you are without having any idea really what you're like, or basing it on anything other than kind of just like what their first thoughts are when they see you. So they can decide, because for whatever reason, whatever it is, they decide, you have a certain type of features, you must think a certain way, be a certain way. People make all sorts of decisions that are wrong in terms of what their ideas about a person are, just based on what they look like. And so it took me a long time to realize that people wouldn't, even when they were talking to me, and even after they had talked to me for a while, were not really talking to the person that I knew myself to be, right? So it's interesting, and I kind of had to learn to do that about other people also. But also in terms of just like physical attractiveness, it took me a while. Well, there was kind of a time when that was much diminished because I was overweight and also miserable about being overweight. I really did look very different, and had to learn how to deal with all that stuff. But then kind of even after that, there were a few years, I guess, between like 23 and like 30, into my early 30s, where I did look the way that I had kind of been meant to look, which is kind of like my normal weight and everything. And I had to learn to deal as an adult with what it was like to look the way that I did, right? And so I did. Right, I tried to learn to like balance all of that and like deal with it, anticipate it. And then like right when I kind of got used to dealing with life and like, socially and professionally and all of that stuff, looking the way that I did then I had to start to deal with getting older and having people's reactions and perceptions and all that stuff change yet again. And I'm still kind of in the process of doing that. So it's kind of funny, like I often kind of feel like I'm not really kind of sure what to expect. I'll be like, all right, well, make an assumption or whatever that like such and such person could never be attracted to me, like I'm just too old, and then all of a sudden I find out that that's not true. Or I'm like walking around thinking, oh yeah, like I'm, this such and such person must be attracted to me because I'm still like beautiful, and then it turns out that they're like, oh my god, you're the last person on earth. It's funny. I think think it's kind of funny. It is kind of hard to know what to think, though. It's kind of hard to know. It's kind of hard to know. You know, and I think, I wonder, although I don't know, I really don't know because I haven't read about it, but I wonder if actually it just kind of does tend to fluctuate, because I don't know that aging is like one direct process, right? I think probably it's more like a question of like fluctuation. So probably there really are days when I really actually do look younger, like my skin is different, like the way that I look is just different, and then maybe like in a week or a couple of weeks I will actually look older, and then like a couple of weeks later I'll look actually younger again. I think that's kind of my guess, although I don't really know. My guess is that the things that like repair your body, your hormones and that kind of thing, actually kind of tend to fluctuate, and so there will be times when I actually do look younger and actually do look older, but it's just a question of kind of like, you know, how my body is kind of processing life. So it's kind of interesting, but it is kind of like a funny situation to be in, like, okay, well, you don't know, you don't really know, you know, like not really being sure, like from one minute to the next, kind of what to expect from people, because like I am yet again in the process of trying to like set my thinking so that I can anticipate and deal with people's reactions, and so that like the things that I choose to do, even the things that I choose to wear or whatever it is, are like appropriate to what I look like and what my situation is. It's kind of that is kind of interesting that way. It's kind of a pain, but there it is. What can you do? You know, what can you do?